law, because what is happening at the local level also comes from the international law. So one of the most recent pieces that recognizes the need to employ an intersectional approach is the CEDAW latest general recommendation number 40 on equal and inclusive representation of women in decision-making systems. It is indeed, I would say, a revolutionary piece of paper, and I would kindly invite all of you to have a read and to see how comprehensively this document look at different areas and how come with the recommendations that are in the end aimed for the states to take it on board and to do reforms on the domestic level. Another illustrative example is also the Council of Europe recommendation on ensuring equality for Roma and traveler women and girls, which also recognizes, and I will quote it here, intersectional discrimination aggravates the inequalities from which Roma and traveler women and girls suffer, and that it leads to particular vulnerabilities. It's also a very good document, and it adds so much value to international jurisprudence. The recommendation was issued last year, so it's also quite fresh. And last but not least, there are many pieces where intersectionality is mentioned, and it's worth looking at that. But the last piece I would like to focus is the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights when it comes to cases related to forced sterilization towards Roma women. These decisions add significant value as it acknowledges the multi-layered and intersecting challenges facing Roma women. So now we need to bring more attention to applying this concept at the domestic levels, as I have said a bit before. What I want to say with this, that states now have to redouble their efforts to address the intersectional discrimination experienced by Roma women. The policy-making process is not fully inclusive unless the voices of Roma women are heard and taken into account, as have been mentioned by Theresia earlier. On the other end is civil society, and specifically are Roma women's advocates who advocate, and they have to ensure that the states are meeting these commitments and they ensure better protection for Roma women's rights. And last but not least, we at ODIHR and other international organizations, we are always open for suggestions, cooperation and communication with states, civil society, and between ourselves. And on a very, very final note, I would like to say that from our experience, joint efforts can have a greater impact. So that is all what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia, for everything what you shared, for the work of OSCE, and of course the report that you published last year. I was personally very happy that the women issue was taken on such a scale, and that NGOs were asked questions about gender. Thank you for mentioning the judgments from the European Court of Human Rights on forced sterilization, and on bringing up the intersectional discrimination. Now I would like to give the floor to Ivana Krstic, and I would like to invite her to give the panel reflections. But also, I'm also very curious to hear your opinion on how we can integrate the experiences of Roma women into global gender equality frameworks. to ensure that their specific needs are addressed in a broader context.
First of all, thank you, Maria, and thank you everyone and organizers for the invitation to join you today. I really enjoyed the conversation that we had thus far, and I want to add that Natalie already gave a very good summary of our discussion. So my pleasure is really immense, bearing in mind that I teach international human rights law and minority rights courses, and that the position of Roma, and especially Roma women, is always among those vulnerable groups that are covered with my students. But also today, I'm really very much honored to be with you in my capacity as a member of the Working Group on Discrimination Against Women and Girls. And what we heard today is that despite decades of commitments, we still see persistent barriers to access to education, healthcare, employment, political participation. And let me start with very briefly explaining the position of the working group. I agree with Natalia that the intersectional approach is extremely important, and she mentioned the general recommendation number 40 of the CEDAW, but I would also like to underline that the working group consistently recognizes that women and girls are not a uniform group, but rather diverse in real life experiences, in the social context and identities. And what we are doing all the time is that we are repeatedly underscoring the importance of addressing intersectional discrimination where different forms of marginalization overlap. In different tools that we are using, such as thematic reports, country visits, and communications to states, we have documented how Roma women are disproportionately impacted by social welfare practices that unjustifiably target their families, by healthcare systems that segregate or deny them essential services, by also widespread discrimination in employment, and by harmful stereotypes that portray them as fertile or promiscuous, thereby increasing their vulnerability to violence. We also tackle the harmful practice of ethnicizing violence, where gender-based violence in Roma communities is dismissed or normalized as a cultural issue rather than addressed as a serious human rights violation. And also what we notice is that hate speech in media often amplifies these stereotypes and foster an environment of hostility, making it even harder for Roma women to assert their rights. Yet we have also met, and I would like to underline that particularly during our visits to states, remarkable Roma women who have succeeded against all odds, women who have been professionals, community leaders, activists, and advocates for the rights of others in their communities. Their success underscores the fact that when Roma women's voices are heard and their potential is unlocked, entire community benefits. And I think that we've heard a lot about that today. Despite this, we have to underline that the realities remain stark. And we have encountered unacceptably high maternal mortality rates, segregated or under-resourced educational settings, insufficient and insecure housing, and the frequent denial of even the most basic of services. And many of you mentioned today, but Natalia also underlined that poor and rural women and women with disabilities are often in an especially vulnerable position, lacking access to transportation, healthcare facilities, or social support services, which deepens their isolation and exclusion. And these findings confirm that gender equality simply cannot be achieved while Roma women remain on the margins of national strategies and policy making. And throughout today's conversation, I would say that 3 urgent messages have emerged. But of course, you can add some additional if you think that those 3 are maybe not good targeted. First, I would like to underline that inclusion must be intentional. General gender equality measures will never be sufficient unless they address the specific concerns and contexts of Roma women. Second, there must be accountable implementation of existing frameworks. We already heard that we have instruments such as EU Roma Strategic Framework and OSCE Action Plan, but political will, sufficient resources, and transparent monitoring are essential to turn these commitments into realities. And third, Roma women themselves must be recognized as capable agents of change. Their real-life experiences are a form of expertise that should guide legislation, budget allocations, and policy design in parliaments, equality bodies, UN delegations, and all other spaces where transformative decisions are made. Natalie also mentioned the cases of the European Court of Human Rights, and I would also like to underline that the court has repeatedly acknowledged the multiple and systemic discrimination Roma women face, whether it manifests through forced sterilization that was mentioned, but also in cases of forced eviction, disproportionate vulnerabilities in seeking justice, or the failure of states to protect them from violence. Yet many Roma women face additional hurdles in accessing justice itself, from high legal costs to bias among law enforcement and judicial personnel, which further compounds their marginalization. Likewise, the CEDAW and the working group have called for an end to forced sterilization, segregation in healthcare, and the political invisibility of Roma women. These calls have been echoed in statements and reviewed by other international and regional bodies, including the Council of Europe and the European Commission, which have consistently pointed to the need for culturally sensitive and properly funded programs that address the complex realities of Roma women's lives. Reflecting on today's discussion, we have also heard valuable insights from colleges working in diverse contexts. We learned from the experiences of Roma women in the UK, such as the persistent effects of historical persecution and forced assimilation, and the urgent need for culturally sensitive mental health support to break cycles of trauma. From Ukraine, we were reminded that Roma women's organizations are at the forefront of humanitarian response, providing everything from psychological counseling to retraining programs, often substituting for absent state structures in a time of war. We also heard about the concept of disaster justice in Turkey, where post-earthquake realities have deepened inequalities for Domlom and Abdul women, raising pressing questions about shelter, health, and employment. From the OSCE perspective, we have seen how robust intersectional approaches backed by evidence-based research and regular status reports are crucial to understanding Roma women's challenges and promoting transformative advocacy. And finally, from Romania, there have been noteworthy steps to combat violence and support Roma women through specialized shelters, training for personnel, and awareness campaigns. Yet the existing networks and resources must be strengthened and expanded to meet the real scale of the need. Turning to the future now, and achieving the SDG 5, and indeed all the SDGs, I would say, calls for inclusive strategies, greater coordination among stakeholders, and unwavering commitment. We know that progress cannot be sustained if states rely solely on short-term projects or symbolic gestures. Instead, and this is my proposal, we should ensure that data is disaggregated to capture the intersection of gender and ethnicity, so that public policies are not blind to the specific barriers confronting Roma women. Also, we should provide long-term flexible funding to grassroots Roma women's organizations and community initiatives, enabling them to lead durable and transformative change from within. These local groups often have the clearest sense of what works on the ground. Also, it is very important to monitor national SDG implementation with a lens of accountability that centers the experiences of Roma women. Only then we can identify gaps, track real progress, and adjust course in a way that honors their realities. And finally, it is also important to adopt explicit recognition of Roma women in all future UN, EU, and national level reviews and action plans. This ensures that they are never again overlooked in decisions intended to foster equality and development. And moreover, sustained partnership between government, civil society, and international organizations can help support systemic reforms. Local authorities, for instance, have a critical role to play in making sure that educational programs and employment initiatives, health care services are accessible to Roma women. Also, community leaders and organizations can bolster these efforts by providing direct assistance, raising awareness about legal rights, and gathering accurate data on the challenges Roma women face. The private sector can also be an ally, for example, by creating pathways into quality jobs, supporting training and mentorship programs, and adhering to non-discrimination in hiring and workplace policies. In several of our country visits, we have seen how even modest, well-targeted initiatives can yield substantial benefits, introducing mediators in schools to encourage girls to remain in education, deploying mobile healthcare teams equipped with culturally competent staff, creating specialized legal aid services to address gender-based and racial discrimination. And such measures can provide immediate relief and become catalysts for broader structural change when they are expanded and properly funded. They also demonstrate that progress is possible when Roma women's rights are treated not as peripheral concerns, but as core human rights and development priorities. And dear colleagues, I will conclude with saying that the working group will continue to highlight the systemic injustices that Roma women endure and will keep calling on governments and international partners to move from commitments to real actions. Roma women have waited long enough, not for charity or token gestures, but for justice, visibility, and a structural change that will uphold their fundamental rights. And as our discussion today have shown, meaningful engagement with Roma women, whether in the context of historical discrimination, humanitarian crisis, or national level reforms, can lead to powerful innovations and solutions. And with this, I will conclude and thank you once again for the opportunity to be a part of this group, to have possibility to conclude. Although Natalia, as I already said, did a great job before me. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Professor Ivana, for being with us today and giving your panel reflections and for being a supporter and ally. It means a lot to all of us, like Roma women. Now I would like to open the floor for questions and answers. But as I have seen in the chat, I have Zola Kondur. She wants to add some short information.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thanks. Dear colleagues, I'm representing the Council of Europe office in Ukraine and the projects on national minorities, Roma, and anti-discrimination. I'm really happy to participate in this very interesting meeting. I'm also glad to see Natalia and Simona, our colleagues. And unfortunately, I didn't hear the presentation on Ukraine, but I hope that you received enough information to get the knowledge of the situation of Roma women during the war. So I will not repeat that one. Also, I have a lot to share, but I would like to inform you that under the Council of Europe office in Ukraine, together with the Parliament of Ukraine and Ombudsman Office and Roma Women Fund Chirikli and Council of Europe, we have established task force on Roma women, exactly with the same aim as you discussed today, to help with the implementation of the existing policies and to work on the inclusion of the Roma women at local and national level, and about, of course, participation of Roma women in the decision making, and also to make the voices of Roma women to be heard, especially those of internally displaced women. I absolutely agree with all the conclusions of Ivana and Natalia provided, especially regarding inclusion. And here I would like to pay your attention of course, on the importance of education. As a task force established by all the entities that I mentioned, we pay big attention, especially to education and access to quality education of Roma girls and boys. Without this education, we will not have women to be included or into decision making or to be treated equally with other women and men when we are speaking about decision making or integration into society of any country. And accountable implementation of the existing policy, I would say this is also one of the most important issues, not only in Ukraine, but many European countries. And here, as a task force, we are also working to coordinate between different stakeholders and partners in Ukraine on the implementation of the Roma national strategy and development of the new action plan, which should be adopted for the 2026. And also just to inform you that we have a international Roma coordination group in Ukraine. It's mainly for the international organizations and partners to coordinate between us and to plan our activities and share with the information in order not to duplicate our work, but also with the aim to strengthen our efforts. Well, I have a lot to say, but I understand that we don't have time. Maybe next time I will have this possibility. Thanks.
Thank you, Zola. Thank you for informations and everything what you have shared. So I don't see anyone adding questions or comments in the chat. Let me check again.
I would like to put one question.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Roma Women Task Force at which level, please? Can you give more information?
Yes, I can. But can I ask Olga, are you representing Ukraine
Yes,
or
Roma,
your...
no, Moldova, Republic of Moldova, Roma,
Okay.
platform of Roma Women, yes, from
Yeah.
Moldova, but I co-founded with my present director, Elena Serba, I co-founded Roma Task Force, especially concerning persons which were displaced, so refugees, but not one specialized on like Roma women. And
I
we have
see.
big regrets now because we have, so I will not went in details, but it was not, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now men are in charge. Yeah, it's clear. I think we all know the situation. Yes, when women are working, but men are in charge.
No,
Thank you.
in our task force, we do not have a task force on Roma women. We do not have men on charge, but this task force is at national level, but we are also coordinating with the local authorities. And for example, the first activity that has been implemented under task force was the regional visit to Transcarpathia to visit the Roma communities, to visit the segregated Roma schools, and to meet with the regional and local authorities and discuss the issues of Roma women and men and children, especially, and access to education of Roma girls. Of course, I know Elena Sirbu and for many years, and I'm happy to hear that you also have task force. But our task force is that, on the level of the Parliament, Ombudsman Office, Council of Europe, and umbrella Roma women organization Chirikli.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Olga. Anyone else having maybe a question or a comment? Can jump in the discussion.
We have one in the chat from Alina.
Alina? Okay, Alina, would you like to say the question or should I read it? Maybe because, oh, okay, I will read it, but let's see. Oh,
she unmuted. Hello.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if you hear me.
We hear
Okay.
you.
Great. Just from the very beginning to apologize because I stayed hidden somehow because I'm home with my child. He's in the school holiday, so sorry if you will hear some yeah sounds. First of all, my name is Alina Kovac. I'm living now in Doncaster, UK, and I'm working as migrant health officer in Doncaster Council Public Health. I'm very happy to see many of you here, and I'm just seeing every day big discrepancies between the European level work and gains at that level and what is happening at the grassroots level. And here I'm speaking about what is happening at the local level here in the UK. When I moved here, I thought that I will start my work from the same level as I did before. But I have to say that I have a deja vu feeling. It's like turning back in time at least 10 years. Here, the Roma population doesn't have very good access to services in general. My focus is to increase the access of Roma, especially of Roma women, to the healthcare services. And for this, I'm trying to, be as much creative I can with zero funding and to bring, all related health services together. So I'm organizing health fairs to bring services together and to match the needs of Roma women to with the existing services. Of course, this is not enough because the language barriers continue to be a tough barrier. I'm trying, to find some ideas, ways, to address all these needs. It's very difficult because in the last census from 2021, at the local level in Doncaster, there were just 687 Roma declared. So in this context, it's very difficult to build any policies at the local level. Of course, we know the reality, it's a different one because Roma are afraid to declare themselves as being Roma because they are afraid of, discrimination, not to be discriminated when they are going to find, services. So in this context, I have my my question here. So how can we ensure that the research and data collection on Roma in general and on Roma women in special is inclusive? So we can, think and put together meaningful programs and policies for Roma.
Thank you, Alina, for the question and for the comment. I would like to ask if someone wants to answer the question or add something. Natalia, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I can partially answer to this question. Before joining the OOC, I was working in civil society back in my country, in Moldova, for 10 years. And I can answer like from that role to the second part of the question, how to inform the policy and practice. So to inform the policy, actually, you have to go and meet with the policymakers and on a regular basis, and to have this dialogue, this communication with them, to be constant in your efforts. looking back in time, that helped with what I was doing in the country. And there is also another side of advocacy, which unfortunately, looking at Roma civil society, I have to be critical here because this is the situation. We, Roma civil society, do not really use the instruments provided by the UN, and there are really very good instruments. For instance, UN treaty bodies, when they do the country review. So civil society can send alternative reports. Then the members of the committee, out of these reports, they draft a list of issues, and then when the authorities are asked about what they did, they have to answer to this. So basically, is the information from the civil society is feeding into the process, and then after the country is reviewed, all these recommendations come back to the country on what has to be improved at the domestic level. I have been engaged in this process back in time with CEDAW, and it worked really, really very well. So this is a way on how to do things. But when it comes to research and data collection, I would like to share maybe our experience at Wadir, how we do it. I mean, like, we have been back and forth having some gender-related things at Wadir, but not fully tailored and being considerate about the needs of Roma women. So, and that's why we did this needs assessment I was telling, to see what are the needs, what is the gap, what is the potential, what to fill in, you know, what to explore, and so on. And we did this exercise. We took a non-Roma gender expert, and then we paired this expert with a young Roma women activist. So they work together, like the same scenario we have for the advocacy handbook that I just mentioned earlier when I had my statement. So we pair Roma and non-Roma because we have to bring the perspective and the voice of Roma women into these activities, because we cannot design things or measures without the voice of Roma women. This is impossible. I know that these big machineries, such as our organization, they do that, but we have to change the perspective, and to change it, we need to have Roma women in place, you know, and then you can change it. But we are going to launch this advocacy handbook by the end of the year. I'm being very humble, and I'm gonna say it as it is. It is going to be a very practical document with the tips, with the bullet points, with the different examples on how to do intersectional and practical advocacy. So keep your eyes on us. We are going to launch this.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important. I mean, all these aspects, but what can you do when at the local level you don't have any Roma organizations? There is no community cohesion. So I started since 2 years to do community engagement, but at a certain point, my work contract came to an end because no one think that this type of work takes at least 5 years. And now I moved to another job, and I was trying to be creative in order to be involved in working with the Roma community. I name our Roma community as economic migrants because I'm working on migration now. And I have to keep an eye and to develop that part of work, and to keep all institutions involved in working with Roma community. Otherwise, it's tough because you don't have enough support from the local authority, and it's in this context, it's really tough, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alina. I think Zola wants to add something. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to share with our experience, and also maybe try to answer Alina's question. But actually, I'm very happy to see Alina. We have been working together
Me
in
too.
2010, and we worked on the Roma Mediators program, and I want to tell you, Alina, that this program is one of the most successful programs in Ukraine, and the mediators are still working, and they're extremely useful, especially during the war in Ukraine. So you did something
Very
absolutely
happy.
amazing here with us in Ukraine. Well, about the data collection and about the policy development and implementation, here maybe I would speak more not as a Council of Europe, but as a Roma person and Roma activist with the experience for more than 25 years. I absolutely agree with Alina on what she said about the local level and not having capacitated Roma NGOs or Roma representatives at the local level. The policy would be amazing with all the data, including all the needs of the Roma people. But if we do not have trained people at the local level, like local authorities and Roma NGOs or Roma representatives, this is not going to be implemented and not going to be successful. That's why I speak always about the education and access to quality education of our people. Without that, we cannot have future of our nation. So that's extremely important. For example, now we have supported as a Council of Europe the State Service on Ethnic Affairs and Freedom of Conscience. So they launch a research on the situation of Roma people in Ukraine. And ideally, the data that will be collected should be used for the next action plan, national action plan for the implementation of the Roma strategy. But again, I'm afraid that it's not going to be effectively implemented because of many issues in Ukraine and problems, but also because of the local level authorities maybe not always ready and willing to work and implement those policies, and because of the understanding and capacity of our local small Roma organizations or Roma leaders, informal Roma leaders in the communities. It's not that we have everywhere Roma NGOs. In some cities, we do not have NGOs. We have only Roma representatives who are representing their own interest. And this is another big issue, not only in Ukraine. So maybe next time we can have another topic for discussion on this as well. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I would like now to give the floor to Simona. And Simona will be the last actually to have the possibility to speak on this event, but I'm sure we will have more events in the future. Simona.
Thank you very much, Maria. I really want to express my gratitude to all of you joining us today, both speakers and attendees. I think it's a very important conversation. As we were preparing for this event, we just realized that there's so much gap in terms of everything. And we really want to, just shed a bit of light on the situation of Roma women in this mainstream, even global types of discourses. We are highly missed. And I think, we should slowly start to occupy this type of spaces, to say so, even though this is a virtual space, but I think it's very much welcomed. And I'm very grateful, because we could bring together quite a diverse group of panelists, I would say, government representatives, civil society, OSCE, UN working group, women, Roma themselves, who have been working and are still working on Roma women issues. So I think from that perspective, it was quite a successful event because we could, come together and speak about these issues. Of course, there are so many challenges ahead, and it's so difficult to penetrate, from the global to the local or vice versa. And we see, like Alina was saying, that there's so much discrepancy in between. There's a lot of work. We know, at least in general lines, what are the issues and how we should approach them. And I just want to express my gratitude to Ivana once again for joining and for having such a strong speech. I felt like she's one of the people from the community, and I'm really grateful for your support and for your work. And I'm very grateful to have all of you here today. and also for the people asking their questions. I think that's really great. Thank you very much, and we look forward for our next opportunity to come together.
Thank you, Simona, for all your efforts for organizing this event and for inviting me to be the moderator. Yeah, I would also like to thank to all the speakers. Thank you, Teresia, Zinaida, Fatosh, Ramona, Mihaela, Natalia, and thank you very much again, Ivana, for putting everything together. And of course, I will close this event with the three things that you mentioned that are important. That's first the intentional inclusion. Second, accountable frameworks, and the third thing, Roma women as agents of change. Thank you, everyone, also for participating in the discussion and for taking your time to be here virtually with us. So have a nice rest of the day and see you in some other occasion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.